In the heart of ancient Greece, amidst the burgeoning democracy of Athens, a man was born whose ideas would echo through the corridors of time, shaping the very foundations of Western philosophy. His name was Socrates, a figure as enigmatic as he was influential, a man who wrote nothing himself, yet whose voice resonates through the dialogues of his most famous student, Plato. Born in or around 470 BCE, Socrates entered a world of intellectual ferment, a city that was a crucible of new ideas in art, politics, and thought. His father, Socrates, was a stonemason, a sculptor of marble, and his mother, Venerate, was a midwife, a profession Socrates would later use as a metaphor for his own philosophical method. It is believed that Socrates initially followed in his father's trade, learning to work with stone, a craft that required precision, patience, and an eye for the form within the raw material. But Socrates was destined to sculpt not stone, but as an Athenian citizen, he fulfilled his military duties with distinction, serving as a hoplite in the Peloponnesian War. He fought in the battles of Potidæa, Delium, and Amphipolis, where his courage and physical endurance were noted by his contemporaries. These experiences of war, of life and death, likely deepened his philosophical inquiries into the nature of courage, justice, and the good life. At some point in his life, Socrates turned away from the pre-Socratic focus on the nature of the cosmos and directed his attention inward, to the realm of human ethics and morality. He became a familiar sight in the Agora, the bustling marketplace of Athens, where he would engage in conversation with anyone and everyone, from powerful statesmen to humble craftsmen. He was not a teacher in the conventional sense. He did not lecture or charge fees for his wisdom. Instead, he practiced a unique method of inquiry, a form of cooperative, argumentative dialogue that came to be known as the Socratic method, or Lenchus. This method involved a relentless series of questions aimed at stimulating critical thinking and exposing the contradictions in his interlocutor's beliefs. Socrates famously claimed to know nothing, a position of intellectual humility that he saw as the necessary starting point for any genuine pursuit of knowledge. His friend Chaerephon is said to have asked the oracle at Delphi if anyone was wiser than Socrates, to which the oracle replied that there was no one. Socrates was puzzled by this divine pronouncement, and he set out to test its truth by questioning those who were reputed to be wise, the politicians, the poets, and the artisans of Athens. He found that the politicians, though they spoke with great confidence, knew nothing of true statesmanship. The poets, while they created beautiful works, could not explain the source of their inspiration or the meaning of their own creations. The artisans, while they possessed great skill in their respective crafts, mistakenly believed that their technical knowledge extended to all other matters of importance. Through these encounters, Socrates came to understand the oracle's meaning. His wisdom lay not in possessing knowledge, but in being aware of his own ignorance. He was wiser than others, because he did not claim to know what he did not know. This relentless questioning, while it attracted a circle of devoted young followers, including Plato and Xenophon, also earned him many enemies among the powerful and influential citizens of Athens. They saw him as a social irritant, a gadfly, who stung the lazy horse of the state into a state of self-examination. Socrates believed that the unexamined life is not worth living, a maxim that encapsulated his entire philosophical project. He argued that true happiness and virtue could only be achieved through a process of rigorous self-reflection and the pursuit of knowledge. For Socrates, virtue was knowledge. To know the good was to do the good. He believed that no one knowingly does evil, but rather that wrongdoing is a result of ignorance. If one truly understood the nature of justice, courage, and piety, one would naturally act in accordance with these virtues. Socrates also introduced a new understanding of the soul, or psyche, as the seat of consciousness and moral character. He taught that the most important task in life was the care of one's soul, a task that required constant examination and purification. His political views were also controversial. He was a critic of democracy as it was practiced in Athens, believing that governing was a skill that required expert knowledge, not the opinion of the uninformed majority. This, combined with his association with figures like Alcibiades and Critias, who had been involved in oligarchic coups, made him a politically suspect figure. In 399 BCE, the political tensions in Athens, still recovering from the trauma of the Peloponnesian War and the rule of the 30 tyrants, finally came to a head. At the age of 70, Socrates was brought to trial on 2 charges: impiety, as a bea for not recognizing the gods of the state and for introducing new divinities, and corrupting the youth. His main accusers were Meletus, a poet, Anytus, a powerful politician, and Lycon, an orator. These charges were likely a pretext for a politically motivated prosecution, a way to silence a man who had for decades been a thorn in the side of the Athenian establishment. In his defense, as immortalized in Plato's Apology, Socrates did not beg for mercy or try to appease his accusers. Instead, he reaffirmed his philosophical mission, declaring that he was a gift from the gods to the city, a gadfly sent to awaken them from their intellectual slumber. He argued that he had never intentionally corrupted anyone, and that his questioning was not a form of impiety, but a service to the god Apollo. When asked to propose his own penalty, Socrates, with a characteristic touch of irony, suggested that he should be rewarded with free meals at the Prytaneum, an honor reserved for Olympic champions and other benefactors of the city. This response, seen as a sign of his arrogance and disrespect for the court, likely sealed his fate. The jury of 501 Athenian citizens found him guilty by a narrow margin. He was sentenced to death by drinking a poisonous concoction of hemlock. While awaiting his execution in prison, his friends, led by the wealthy Crito, arranged for his escape. In Plato's dialogue Crito, Socrates refuses to flee, arguing that to do so would be to betray the laws of Athens, under which he had lived his entire life. He argued that he had a social contract with the state, and that to disobey its laws, even when they were unjust, would be to harm the very fabric of society. On his final day, as described in Plato's Phaedo, Socrates was surrounded by his grieving friends, yet he himself remained calm and cheerful. He spent his last hours discussing the immortality of the soul, offering arguments for why a true philosopher should not fear death. He saw death not as an end, but as a liberation of the soul from the prison of the body. When the time came, he drank the hemlock without hesitation, and with remarkable composure, he met his end. His last words, or according to Plato, were, "Crito, we owe a rooster to Asclepius. Please don't forget to pay the debt." The meaning of these final words has been debated for centuries, but they may suggest a sense of gratitude for a life of inquiry, a healing of the soul from the sickness of ignorance. The death of Socrates was a profound and tragic event, a moment when Athens, the cradle of democracy, condemned its most dedicated seeker of truth. But his death was not the end of his influence. In fact, it was the beginning of his immortality. His martyrdom for philosophy transformed him into a legendary figure, a symbol of intellectual integrity and the courage of one's convictions. It was through the writings of his student, Plato, that Socrates' legacy was preserved and transmitted to future generations. In Plato's dialogues, Socrates is the central character, the master of inquiry, the embodiment of the philosophical life. This gives rise to the Socratic problem, the challenge of distinguishing the historical Socrates from the literary character created by Plato. Regardless of this historical puzzle, the Socrates of Plato's dialogues has had an immeasurable impact on the course of Western thought. He laid the groundwork for ethics, epistemology, and political philosophy, and his method of inquiry remains a powerful tool for critical thinking to this day. His influence can be seen in the works of Aristotle, who was Plato's student, and in the Hellenistic schools of thought that followed, such as Stoicism and Cynicism. The Stoics, with their emphasis on virtue and reason, and the Cynics, with their rejection of conventional social norms, both drew inspiration from Socrates' life and teachings. Even today, thousands of years after his death, Socrates continues to challenge us to examine our own lives, to question our assumptions, and to never cease in our pursuit of wisdom. He remains the archetypal philosopher, the gadfly of humanity, forever reminding us that the quest for knowledge and self-understanding is the noblest of all human endeavors.